Good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? My name is Andrea. This is Geeky Girls Journal. Today is February 4th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining in. We have been having this conversation. If you're a first timer, let me know in the chat. Just put a 1 so that I can welcome you in. And if you are a subscriber, you already know that means you're family. So make sure you like this, engage, because we're going to go through this Bible. We're going to, I don't want to say dissect. That might not sound like a great word to use, but we're going to go through this word together. And this is a learning environment. So make sure you chime in because we can all learn something from each other. And don't forget to hit that like button. I see you all doing it. Thank you very much. We can all learn something from each other. So don't be afraid to chime in, ask questions, leave your comments, just engage. Let me know where your heart is this morning. How's the weather? How are you all doing? And then we're going to get right into Genesis 20. I see you, Riaz. I see you, Bud. Hey, how you doing? And Mr. Terry is in here this morning, and some 4,000 of you others. Geeky. My path to God is through Ishmeal. Is it? Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Your path to God's through. Can you explain that a little bit, Riaz, in the comment section? Because we all know who Ishmael is. It's Abraham's son. So yeah, let us know in the comment section. Can you all hear and see me okay? I hope you can, because this is all I got. this is what we're doing today. So let me see if I can up a little bit. I don't know. We're not going to worry about it. Just let me know if you all are having difficulty. I had to start doing it horizontally because I just wanted to make sure that I'm not dependent on the Wi-Fi signal so that it's not going in and out, because it was doing that the last time. So this time I just decided to go right through the YouTube platform on my laptop. So hopefully this will give us a better connection, using the Ethernet. I'm doing everything I know to do today, you all, to make this live enjoyable and successful. So there we have it. Geeky, same guy, but two different brothers. Right. Yeah, they are. Yeah, two different brothers. They are two different brothers from two different mothers. Brothers from different mothers. Okay. Geeky Ishmael is the father of the Arabs, and through that line, Prophet Muhammad saw. So see, I'm learning something. I'm learning something new. Geeky, same guy, but two different brothers. Geeky, also same guy. Works for me. You talk about the same guy I'm talking about, then we're on the same page. I can see and hear you clearly. No lag, no echo, no glare. Okay, so you're saying the only difference is that they're from two different moms. Okay, the sons are from two different moms, of course, because Ishmael is the son of Hagar. Is it the exact same story? I'm wondering, because I just want to make sure. I don't like to assume anything. Is it the same up to, like, is everything the same up to that point? It's just that you all are going under the umbrella of Ishmael instead of Isaac? I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Just wondered, Riaz, I just like clarity and I like to understand things. So thank you for clearing that up for me. Yeah, I didn't know that. All right. So we ended at Genesis 19. And now we're going to talk about Genesis 20, where Abraham, he's doing some of the same things he did with Pharaoh when he met this guy, this king named let me see if I can say his name, Abimelech. And he told Abimelech that Sarah was his sister. So remember, we were saying he was telling the truth because Sarah is his half sister. They have the same father but different mothers. Wait, or is it? Yeah, the same father but different mothers. So he was telling her the truth. He was telling the king the truth. He just was omitting a lot of information, important information, mind you, because it seems that every time he used that story as a way of protection, something happened to the person on the other end and to their families. Remember the Pharaoh and his family, remember what happened with them? So in this story with Abimelech, and I'm going to read it, the same thing happened. His household and all the women in his household were not able to conceive because of Sarah. So we're gonna go into it, but the perspective is different and belief is different too, but similar teachings too. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for sharing. Keep on sharing, Riaz. So let me see. Let me go to my Bible app so I can actually read Genesis 20. And I'm going to read from the Messenger Bible. Let's see, any questions? So Abraham traveled from, okay, I can hear that echo. Abraham traveled from there south to the Negev and settled down between Kadesh and Shur. While he was camping in Gerar, Abraham said of his wife Sarah, she's my sister. So he's telling Abimelech this. He's telling the king again that this is his sister. T. John. Hey, Country Hustle, how are you? Thank you for coming in. So remember, he is in the habit of telling people that Sarah is his sister because he thinks that this is a way to spare his life, his life and hers, he says. So he told Sarah way back then, whenever people see us together, make sure you tell them that you're my sister, right? Don't tell them you're my wife, because he thought that he would lose his life if they knew that they were married. So that's the backstory with that. So that's why he told him, she's my sister. Remember, this happened again. So this is the second time this happened. At least the second time this has happened. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. Same thing again. Y'all remember? But God came to Abimelech in a dream that night and told him, you're as good as dead. So he told him, you gonna lose your life messing around with this woman. That woman you took, she's a married woman. So he doesn't this does anybody remember the soap operas when we were younger, like the soaps? And I guess it can be a comparison to those dramatic series now, but doesn't this kind of get kind of soap opera-ish? It's a story that what did I do? Okay, I did something here. Yeah, it's a story that you would see in a book, like a dramatic novel, or a story that you could see when you look watching a series, and it's like one of those triangles where you have, lovers and the husband and the wife and things like that. And it's just like all type of exciting things or things happening that just take spins and twists and turns. So we're reading the Bible, and the same things happen during this time where you have, Abraham, who was telling the truth, but also omitting a lot of information, like being dishonest and telling people that that's his sister and having her go along with the same thing in order to spare their life. And then you have again now this king Abimelech, 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 who has taken her now, right? He's taken her now. And then after this happened, God came to him in a dream, right? And he tells him, let me just read it so I'm not making stuff up. This is verse 2-3. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream that night and told him, you're as good as dead. That woman you took, she's a married woman. Now Abimelech had not yet slept with her. It's getting a little, he hadn't slept with her, and he hadn't even touched her, right? So he hadn't slept with her. Good thing he hadn't slept with her or touched her. And then he said, Master, would you take an innocent man's, like it says it says the other word, but we won't read it on YouTube. He says, will you take the life of an innocent man, basically? Didn't he tell me she's my sister? So he's like, Abraham told me she's my sister. And she also confirmed and said, that's my brother. So both of them, once again, they had already planned that they were going to tell people this. So she knew what the routine was. And so she followed through by okaying it and saying, yeah, that is my brother. So Abimelech, he just went on the information that they gave him. Do you all think, let me read, because I think I'm about to jump ahead. Let me read it. So it says, she's my sister. And then she herself say, he's my brother. I had no idea I was doing anything wrong when I did this. So he is like, I'm just going on what they told me. I had no idea they were married. I thought they were brother and sister. My hands are clean. Lord, please. He's about to start pleading. So he said, God said to him in the dream, yes, I know your intentions were pure. That's why I kept you from sinning against me. I was the one who kept you from going to bed with her. So he tells him, listen, I'm the one. I'm the reason why you didn't go to bed with her. I'm the reason that you didn't touch her. I'm the reason why you didn't do anything. So I already know. I know your hands are clean, but I know these things because I'm God, right? God knows because he is the one who is orchestrating everything. Like God knows there's nothing that he does not know, right? They say there's nothing new under the sun. There's also nothing that God doesn't know. So he's like, tell him, hey, I already know this. I know you're clean. Let's move on. I had no idea. So he's like, I had no idea I was doing anything wrong. So God continues to say, I was the one who kept you from going to bed with her. So now give the man's wife back. So now give the man's wife back to him. He's a prophet and will pray for you, pray for your life. If you don't give her back, know that it's certain death for you and everyone in your family. And we can see that this is true because, well, we'd have to jump all the way down. So I won't do that. But we can see that this is a true statement because he ended up taking the ability for the women in that household and in his family, they weren't able to conceive because of the situation until, now we're going to get to that. So he said he's a prophet. Abimelech was up first thing in the morning. He called all his house servants together and told them the whole story, told them what happened so that they can all be on the same page. And then Abimelech called in Abraham and he said, what have you done? Like he was asking, what have you done to us? What have I ever done to you that you would bring on me and my kingdom this huge offense? What you've done to me ought never have been done. So he's like, why did you do this to me? Why did you choose me to do this? I've never done anything to you. So why did you do this to me? And Mr. Terry says, we must remember you can have a short-term gain and suffer a long-term loss. Popular soap operas. Right. So Mr. Terry's giving you all the soap operas because this sounds like a soap opera. A little bit, if you think about it, it just sounds like, wow, this all happened. Yes, it did happen in the Bible. Okay, so he's asking Abraham, like, what made you do this to me? So Abraham goes on to tell him, I did it because he assumed that this area is, let me read it. I don't want to make stuff up for you. So let me go down. I have to go down to it. I got to find it. Okay, so in verse 11 through 13, Abraham said, I just assumed that there was no fear of God in this place and that they'd kill me to get my wife. Besides, the truth is that she is my half sister. So it's the truth that he's sticking with their story. So he's like, yeah, I thought you guys were too far from God and you believe. So he was doing this because he wanted to save their life. And he's like, she really is my half sister, which is the same thing he told Pharaoh. She really is my sister by father, just not by mother. And then when God sent me, so I'm just going to skip. When God sent me out as a wanderer from my father's home, I told her, do me a favor. Wherever we go, tell people that I'm your brother. See, there we have it. That's in verse 11 through 13. You can find that. Then Abimelech gave Sarah back to Abraham and along with her sent sheep and cattle and servants, both male and female. He said, my land is open to you. Live wherever you wish. Now, in this particular passage, I don't know. What do you all think? To me, it looks like Abraham always kind of made out. And what I mean by made out is every time somebody found out that that was really his wife, they ended up giving him gifts like cattle, money, well, silver. I think in this case, he got, I think 1,000, I want to say 1,000 pieces, but I'll get to that part. So he gave him silver, he gave him cattle, he gave him servants. So he accumulated all these things because that person wanted to be made right. And they didn't want to have to deal with the consequences of having taken Sarah as a wife, or in his case, he didn't touch her, he didn't do anything to her, just being in a situation, being put in a situation where, he had to basically just make sure that everybody knew his hands was clean, including God. And now he's curious. He's just like, why would you do this to me? I've done nothing to you. And so in verse 16, um, this is where Abimelech tells Sarah, I've given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Remember who her brother is? Her brother is also her husband, who is Abraham. So he said, that clears you of even a shadow of suspicion before the eyes of the world. You're vindicated. So he tells her, he made it right. And now she's vindicated. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his maidservants, and they started having babies again. Why? Because God told Abraham to pray for Abimelech, right? And then it will make everything right because he's a prophet. So he prayed for Abimelech. And once he prayed for Abimelech, they were all cured and they were now able to conceive children because he had taken that ability away from them because of Sarah. Any questions? Okay, I keep going. For God has shut down every womb in Abimelech's household on account of Sarah, which is Abraham's wife. So that's the summary for Genesis 20. Anybody have any questions? Any questions, comments, or concerns? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Moving into Genesis 21. All right, this is the birth of Isaac, right? So let me go to 21. Let me move on to the next chapter 21. So Genesis 21 is describing the birth of Isaac. And remember, when Sarah was first told that she was going to have a child, she laughed at it. In fact, she laughed, and God was like, why did she laugh? And she lied and said, I didn't laugh. And they were like, oh, yes, you did laugh. This is God or the angel. And they said, oh, yes, you did laugh. And she was like, no, I didn't. They're like, so she lied and said she didn't laugh, but she did laugh. So now when she had Isaac, she laughed again. She laughed because she was thinking, it's just hilarious that somebody of my age and that of Abraham's age can have a child, right? Because she was beyond those years, the childbearing years, quote unquote. But because they still had favor with God and God made this promise to them, he let this come to pass because remember, God cannot lie. So if God tells you something is going to happen, he's going to stick to it. It's not going to happen in our time often because we see here that Abraham was 100 years old. He was 100 years old when he had Isaac. So some time had passed between the point where God told them they would have a child, when Sarah left, and then during the time where they actually had Isaac. He's 100 years old. Imagine being 100 years old having a child. Good Lord. I can see why they laughed. I can see why they laughed. Hey, Inspiration, how are you? Good morning. Yeah, can you understand why they laughed? I surely can. Because if I'm 100 years old, and I don't know what 100 years old look like then, because I know they lived longer lives, but I'm just imagining what 100-year-old look like now. And if she laughed, that would prove to me that they probably thought they didn't have the strength and they didn't have the capacity to deal with a child at that age. So when God told them, you're gonna have a child, that's why she laughed. And then when it came to pass, she thought it was hilarious. In fact, they named the child Isaac because that's what they were told to name it. And Isaac means laughter. So that's a great reminder. So looking at her son just reminds her a couple different things, that God is not a liar, right? Because she laughed. She thought it was funny. But that God, when he says something is going to happen, he follows through on his promises. He follows through. He does not lie, right? He is a person of his word. He doesn't change because he said it way back then that they were going to have one. Now, in his time, it ended up coming to pass. She had this child. Hey, Star. I would have laughed too. I would have laughed too. If you all knew what my age was when I had my last child, I laughed too because I was like, what? And I never thought I would have a child at that age, but I laughed. I was like, really? Okay, God. So I can completely see why Sarah laughed. I can see why she laughed because it's a moment that's laughable. If I'm being honest, like, really? Is this what we're doing? I have not had a child in all these years, but now all of a sudden, when Abraham is 100, I can't remember how old Sarah was at this time. When he's 100, now we don't have a child, Lord. Okay, I know you promised it. So that was so I'm sure that they laughed because of that reason, but also they were probably laughing with joy. I can imagine them just, laughing with joy because God promised it. He stuck to his word. And that was a confirmation for them, but it also, I'm sure, increased their faith in God because they were waiting for all these years. I feel like it was 25 years or something like that, around 25 years. They were waiting for all these years to have this son. And then all of a sudden now it happens. Yes, it's amazing how their story is centered around laughter. I think so too. I think so too. And they can always, like, anybody who hears this story would probably laugh. Would probably laugh, but it's also relatable in other situations because there are, I'm sure, times that God has said something to you. Yes, skepticism, that's a good word. That's exactly it. Joy and skepticism. Good morning, Buddha. How are you? Good morning. Good morning. But I am sure you have been in some situations where God said something to you and you might have just thought it was laughable. Like, really? Okay, God. If you say so, God. And then when it comes to pass, you probably kind of just chuckle to yourself, right? Yeah. Just like I said, when I was pregnant with my last, I laughed out loud. It wasn't even like a smirk, a grin. It was all out, like LOL. I mean, I laughed, like I was laughing so loud. And it was almost disbelief mixed with joy, joy, because I'm like, wow, I didn't think this would happen again, mixed with just several different emotions, and I'm like, well, God, things happen in God's time. Definitely wasn't in my time and in my plan, but I laugh because I'm like, God is a good God. He knows what we need. I didn't even know what I needed then, but I can see why now. So yeah, take God at his word is what I see when I read this. Exactly, Star. Yep. Please, God did it. Am I still okay? So in 21, this is where it gets a little, remember, um, okay, so Sarah has Isaac, and then when he's 8 days old, he gets circumcised because remember the covenant that God made with Abraham is that everybody after this point, when a male child is 8 days old, they are to be circumcised, even if they were bought into the um, the family or in the household, they were to be circumcised. Now, foreigners or people who weren't, then that's kind of how they knew who was, in a covenant with God and who was um, promised. The circumcision was a reminder, a physical reminder of, who was a part of the family or connected to the family or connected to the community or that particular area. Does that make sense? Those who are circumcised. I'm trying to make it make sense in a modern way. So he got circumcised at 8 days old. And then I don't want to miss anything. Um, Abraham was 100. So Sarah laughed because she said, God has blessed me. You're the mom. Okay. God has blessed me with laughter, and all who get the news will laugh with me. And she's right because we still can laugh about it to this day. So she also said, whoever would have suggested to Abraham that Sarah would one day nurse a baby. Now, this part, you all, is where you can see that God makes sure that you're equipped to do what it is that he calls you to do. This is what I see. You let me know what you think about this. You know what? I'll read it and you can tell me what you think about this because I got something when I read it. So it says in verse 8, verse 8. You know what? Let me go up to verse 7. She also said, whoever would have suggested to Abraham that Sarah would one day nurse a baby, yet here I am. I'm giving the old man a son. So she recognizes that she's old and she's giving the old man a son. They both old. The baby grew and was weaned. Abraham threw a big party on the day Isaac was weaned. So he grew a feast. But this is the part I want to look at. The verse that we just read, Genesis 21 and 7 through 8, where she obviously nursed the baby, right? And she could have had someone else nurse the baby because remember in that time you had other people that could nurse other people's babies. Still, they might do it now. I don't know where they do it, but they may still do that in different areas. But she was able to nurse her baby because it says that she weaned him. So she was able to nurse the baby, which goes to show you that she's up in age. And most of the time, when you're beyond that age, you're not able to nurse unless I'm trying to walk lightly with this one. You're not able to, well, I guess if you know, if you're still not in the production phase of life, which we would assume that she wasn't, but she was because of, yes, I was trying to say it nicely, but the milk's gone dry. That's a good way to put it in the comment section. So it's like she usually, if you know a woman that's 100 years old, they may or may not have that functionality anymore where they're able to nurse their child. So the simple fact that she was able to nurse her son on her own at that age is miraculous. Like she was able to do that. Why? Because it was, if it was a promise that God gave her that she was going to have a son, why wouldn't he equip her with all the necessary things? Why wouldn't he equip her with those things that she needed to be able to do that? So that shows you that through God's divine, you know, his through his power and through his ability to accomplish wonderful things and great things, she was able to produce milk apparently because she was nursing him. How else would she be able to nurse him? So she was able to do that. And then she weaned him. And when that happened, they threw a big feast, a big party um, to celebrate. All right. Anybody have any questions? All right. So in verse 9 through 10, I want to read this. One day, Sarah saw the sun. It's funny. It doesn't even call this child by name in this verse. It says she saw the son. We know what his name is, right? Wonder why didn't she call his name out in verse 9 through 10? Let me read it and let you all let me know what you think. So verse 9 through 10. One day Sarah saw the son that Hagar the Egyptian had born to Abraham, poking fun at her son Isaac. No mother likes that, do they? She told Abraham, get rid of this slave woman and her son. No child of this slave is going to share inheritance with my son Isaac. You all listen to this. So that's the first red flag right there that she was upset. First of all, she said, she didn't even say Ishmael anywhere in the translation that I'm reading. She didn't say his name. We all know she know the name of that child. That tells me she was irritated. She was already irritated and annoyed because this son, Abraham's son, Hagar's son, was poking fun of her son, Isaac, her precious little baby that God promised her and that he gave her. This son that she nursed and that she was able to wean and that they had a big party for, right? This feast for. And now your son, Hagar's son, Ishmael, that's his name, you all, Ishmael, is over here poking fun of her son. Her is Sarah. Let me know if you all are keeping up. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, because it can get a little confusing. So Sarah was upset. That's the moral of the story. She was upset because her son was being teased and being bothered by his brother. All right. So oh my goodness. So once this happened, she was so annoyed. She's like, you need to get rid of them, Abraham. They need to go away. Like, I don't even want him to have a part in any of this inheritance with my son. He's not going to share it. I want my son to have everything and I want them to go away. I want them to get out of here, disappear because she's making fun of my son. Like, how dare she make fun of my child? Now, I can see, what's a good word? Contention. I can see some tension as we talked about before in chapter, I don't know, it was around between 12 and 16 or something like that, when Sarah kicked Hagar out the first time. Not kicked her out, because Hagar just left. When they got into the argument before and they were being abusive to each other, Hagar left and then she came back. Okay, this is kind of similar, where they're having a moment again where she's like, this, how dare, I could see her like, how dare that lady's son talk to my son like that? Does she know who he is? And so she gets annoyed and she's like, she needs to go away, because like, I'm stressed out. I don't want to deal with this. This is too much. Now, she didn't really have any emotional ties because that's not her son. It was easy for her to be like, get rid of him and get rid of her too. Like, she is my maidservant, but I don't care. Get rid of her too. Right? So it was easy for her to say. But in this instance, do you all feel like she put her husband in a predicament? Like, do you think that was fair for her to make him make a choice, or make him make a choice? And we're going to keep reading on because something happens. Something happens. But I want to know what you all think. Do you think that, let me see if I could do a poll. Start. Oh, I got to end this poll. Let me end this poll first. Let's see what it says. Yes, 89 per you. Have you hit the like button yet? 89% of you said yes. 11% of you said no. So if you're in 11%, make sure you go and hit that like button. All right, I'm going to end that poll and start another one. And let's see how I can ask this question. Let's see. All right. This is an easy question, you all. Easy right here. It's yes or no. Did Sarah put Abraham in a difficult position? Very easy to answer that. So answer that question, and I'll be looking for the results in a second. But we'll go ahead and continue to talk. Let me change my chat preference. I don't know why it's on top. Again, let me put it on all messages visible. Oh, okay. Mr. Terry says Sarah and Isaac were the inside family. Hagar and Ishmael were the outside family. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Okay, we'll keep going, Miss Terry. Anybody else have any thoughts with that? So we got 50% said yes. Wait, let's see. Let me see what this, because I see the survey moving. That means you all are answering a question. Did Sarah put Abraham in a difficult position? Yes. 33%. No. 67%. Okay. 67% of you say no. Star says, but they were both at fault for this because they didn't believe God and jumped the gun. Right. Yeah, we talked about that. They both were at fault because they didn't. Like, we know that Sarah, like, she gave it away. As soon as she heard it, she started laughing. So we know from the beginning that she thought that this was not going to be something that happened because she laughed. She's been laughing. She laughed before she had the child, and she laughed when she had the child. So she's been laughing throughout this entire time frame to this point. She's laughed, right? And they didn't believe it because they ended up making plans of their own with Hagar to, have a child and to try to start a family that way. But they didn't think about the repercussions. They didn't think about what can happen. They didn't think about the potential things that could arise once they make a decision like that. Because once you have a child, just think about it. If you have a husband and a wife, if you have two partners, and then you invite somebody into that dynamic and say, hey, can you have a child for us? That is nothing but a problem waiting to happen. That's nothing but a problem waiting to happen, because now the person who is on the side, who is not the parent of that child, they're going to feel some kind of way every time they see that child. And then the person who had that child may feel like they have privileges that they don't have, or they may feel like, hey, I can talk to you however I want because that's my child. Or there's going to be some times where people are combative, because you naturally create a situation where somebody can be at odds, right? It doesn't matter how happy and loving, at some point somebody's gonna have something to say about that dynamic, and it's all starting to come like it's all starting to be made apparent throughout these events. And Riz says, but Abraham went and left her, and she said, let's see. And she said, has Allah commanded you to do this? He said, yes. She said, then Allah will not cause us to be lost. We must remember you can have a short-term gain and suffer a long-term loss. Geeky, basically, Islamic version is that God commanded Abraham, peace be upon, to leave. Yeah, he did. Okay, so I'm going to get to that part, Riaz. I'm glad you brought it up. We must remember a night in heaven can lead to a lifetime. Yes, it can. Prophet Abraham left his second wife, Hagar, is it Hagar, and their son Ishmael in a barren place in Makkah, because Allah commanded him to do so. Yeah. Okay. Yes, that is true. Okay, we're going to just read it. We're just going to read it. You all know I like to read it right from the Bible so that nobody can question what I'm saying, because I'm just going to read it right from the word. So in verse 11 through 13, the matter gave great pain to Abraham. See what I mean? Like it seems like there'll be a difficult position. Like if that's my son, but it's not your son. Now Abraham has the right to feel a certain kind of way, because he's like, that's my child. I'm sure he was, just on the fence about which direction he should go at that. Like, what should I do? This is they're both my children. This is my wife, and this is this is her servant. So how am I going to address this issue? So he probably would have preferred to appease all parties, right? And have them stay. I don't know. I'm just guessing in advance, but I want to read you what it actually says in the Bible. Okay, so it says the matter gave, this is 11 through 13, Genesis chapter 21. The matter gave great pain to Abraham. After all, Ishmael was his son. But God spoke to Abraham, don't feel badly about the boy and your maid. Do whatever Sarah tells you. Your descendants will come through Isaac. Regarding your maid's son, be assured that I'll also develop a great nation from him. He's your son too. I want to pull this commentary up that I didn't get to read the whole part, but I read a part of it that is discussing this, and I want to see if I can pull it up while you all are commenting, because right there, God spoke to him and just kind of reassured him, because Sarah said, I want him to go. And then God was kind of like, okay, go do whatever it is that Sarah wanted you to do. Now, at first, I used to always wonder, why did God tell her? I mean, why did God tell him to go ahead and do what Sarah wanted him to do? And I think I got my answer when I read this commentary. No, I know I got my answer when I read this commentary, and I'm going to read it to you if I can find a part of it. But God told him, don't feel badly about sending her and his son away. And let me see what you are saying before I go to the commentary. Also, because Hagar was complying with the teasing because she had done the same. Oh, Ishmael learned it from her, but God is just and provided for her as well. That's a good point, because she did do the same thing. Like she was mocking Sarah, which is why why she had to leave the premises, because she was mocking her, like you said. Okay. Geeky Ishmael is the father of Arabs, also known as the Ishmaelites. Hagar is the Arabic name for, Hagar. Hagar is the Arabic name for Hagar. When Ishmael became thirsty, Hagar, which is the Arabic name for Hagar, Hagar climbed between the mountains of Safa and Mara 7 times. Okay, that's where it differs, because, well, at least I don't know about the information, Riaz. So Riaz is giving us this information from a Islamic perspective. Is that right? Okay. So, Oh, let me find a commentary. That's what I wanted to do for you all. Because yeah, I used to wonder why is it that I just wonder why God told Sarah, no, why God told Abraham to listen to your wife Sarah and just let her go. At first, I thought he probably told her that to keep down the, the fussing, because it probably would have been something like if Abraham said no, let him stay, and she wanted him to go, she probably would have been like, she might have had attitude the whole rest of the time and may have said some things to Abraham. I don't know. I'm just imagining like if they were in different spaces with that and she wanted him to leave, but what if he wanted him to stay? Then they would have been in a conflict as a married couple, because Sarah was definitely displeased with the actions of Ishmael, and she was displeased with Hagar because, like we said, they already had their thing where they were going back and forth and arguing and da 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 da. So I'm pretty sure once the two sons were born, they probably had more conflicts. Why are you looking at my son that way? Or did you feed my child today? I don't know. It could have been anything. Why did you give my child that to eat? It could have been any type of bickering between the two of them. Think about it. And so now she's like, I want her to get out of here. I'm tired of her. Yes, she put both Abraham and Hagar in a difficult situation. The whole story was a full circle. Yes, it is. It sure is inspiration. Geeky, yes. Geeky, these later become steps that Muslims perform during Hajj as pilgrimage. I'm probably not reading those words correctly, but I'm doing the best I can, Riaz. So forgive me if I'm not saying the right. Young Riaz, aka Drip King, is a Muslim, not a Christian. Yeah, I know that, Mr. Terry. He is a Muslim. So I can't, I'm just listening to or reading what he is commenting because I don't know much. Well, I know very little about, what his beliefs are. So he's free to put it in the comment section. I say engage, and I am a Christian, so it differs at certain points. So I don't know. Riaz is saying that it's kind of similar. I just don't know. I can't confirm or deny. I can't say one way or the other because I don't know enough to speak on what he believes. I just know what I believe. So I just wanted to let that be said. There's a lot to be learned from both sides. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I like to, like I said, I like seeing his perspective because he's able to give it. He's able to give it. It's a free country. He can give his perspective. He's not a Christian like I am, but I can, like Star said, I can learn things from his beliefs. And like I didn't know that they were instead of looking at it from the line of Isaac, looking at it from the line of Ishmael. So that's something that I learned today, and it kind of puts things into perspective for me. So I'm glad he's able to share that information over there in the comment section. So what we talk? Oh, the commentary. That's what I wanted you all to hear. So this is Matthew Henry's commentary. I believe it's Matthew Henry. Yep. Matthew Henry's commentary. If you are familiar with Matthew Henry's commentary, and it says, let me go down. I had it exactly pulled up. Ooh, I should read this part too. And they're talking about in this part of the commentary, the promise of Sarah, by faith she received strength to conceive. God, therefore, by promise gave that strength. It was not by the power of common providence, but by the power of a special promise that Isaac was born. A sentence of passing, DEATH, was as it were passed upon the second causes. Abraham was old and Sarah old, and both as good as unalive. Unalive is the word I think we're supposed to use. Unalive. And then the word of God took place. Note, true believers, by virtue of God's promises, are enabled to do that which is above the power of human nature, for by them they partake of a divine nature. So he's talking about right there the birth of Sarah and how we're able to do things through Christ, through God, because um, of the promise that he gives us. It's not done in our human, necessarily done because we're able to do it because it's in our human strength, but it's through God that we're able to have such things miraculous, if you will, happen. So the part I was looking for was I wondered why God told Abraham to listen to Sarah and tell him to leave. And I'm going to go to the angel Gabriel came to Hagar and struck the earth with his heel, causing water to gush forth. This water is known as Zamzam. That's from Riaz. Oh, you are. It says when Sarah received the promise, she laughed with distrust and um, it says, note, when God gives us the mercies we begin to despair of, we ought to remember with sorrow and shame our sinful distrust of God's power and promise when we were in pursuit of them. Isaac was himself afterwards. Okay, I got to find it. Give me 1 second so I can find the part that I'm talking about. That's a circumcision. He filled her with joy. I want to know what I'm looking for, the particular verse. So, oh man. Oh, here it is. The casting out of Ishmael is here considered of and resolved on. So this is a part I want to read you all, I think. Mm, no, that's not it. Man, I had it pulled up too. Let's see. Oh, right here, Star, you made a good point. In a commentary, it says that mocking is a great sin and very provoking to God. There is rooted. Oh no. Man, I hate the fact that I went out of this and you know what? If I find the actual verse, let me do that, and then I can go to the verse in the commentary. That will help out. Um, okay, 11 through 13, and this is 11. Okay, here, I think this is it. In this difficulty, God tells him. Okay, here it is, you guys. Woo, finally found it. So it says, God determined in, this is in verse 12 and 13, which is where we were, right? 12 and 13. 12 and 13 says, yep, do whatever Sarah tells you. Your descendants will come through Isaac. Okay, so here we go. And Star says, had God allowed them to stay, it would create even more confusion and, yep, interference in God's plan. They needed to be separated. Yeah, that's the part that I'm trying to look up. Oh, and if I can find it, but I'm going to read this part because that's exactly what it is, Star. If you see some more on there, put it in the comment section because I was reading and I was like, oh, that makes sense. It made sense to me now because I always wondered, I wonder why God sent him away, but it would. That's exactly right. They had to be separated because because God had a specific plan, and in order for his plan to be fulfilled, he had to separate them. Then also think about it. If they were always mocking each other and it was so much confusion and they button heads, there could have been different results. And then now they would have had to try to modify things again. So I want to try to find, okay, let me read it. God determined it. We may well suppose Abraham to be greatly agitated about this matter, loath to displease Sarah, and yet loath to expel Ishmael. In this difficulty, God tells him what his will is, and then he is satisfied. No, a good man desires no more in doubtful causes than to know his duty and what God would have him do. And when he is clear in this, he is or should be easy. To make Abraham so, God sets this matter before him in a true light and shows him that the casting out of Ishmael was necessary to the establishment of Isaac in the rights and privileges of the covenant. In Isaac shall thy seed be called. Both Christ and the church must descend from Abraham through the loins of Isaac. This is the entail of the promise upon Isaac and is quoted by the apostle Romans 9:7 to show that oh my goodness, I'm having a hard time reading this. To show that not all, I need this to be bigger. I can't even see the words. To show that not all who come from Abraham's loins were the heirs of Abraham's covenant. Isaac, the promised son, must be the father of the promised seed. Therefore, away with Ishmael, send him far enough, lest he corrupt the manners or attempt to invade the rights of Isaac. It will be his security to have his rival banished. So he's saying it's good to have him banished. And I'm going to keep on reading so you can see. The covenant seed of Abraham must be a peculiar people, a people by themselves, from the very first distinguished, not mingled with those that were out of the covenant. For this reason, Ishmael must be separated. Does this make sense to you all? I'm trying to read it slowly and accurately. Abraham was called alone, and so must Isaac be. Because remember, Abraham was sent to a land by himself too. So they're saying that Isaac has to go through the same thing. And you can see this in Isaiah 51:2. It is probable that it is probable that Sarah little thought of this, but God took what she said and turned it into an oracle, as afterwards in chapter 27:10. Okay, does that say enough for you all, or do you want me to keep going? Oh, this is good right here. That the casting out of Ishmael should not be his ruin. Verse 13. So in chapter, 21, verse 13. He shall be a nation because he is thy seed. We are not sure that it was his eternal ruin. It is presumption to say that all those who are left out of the external dispensation from all his mercies, those may be saved who are not thus honored. However, we are sure it was not his temporal ruin. Though he was chased out of the church, he was not chased out of the world. I will make him a nation. Okay. Is that clear for everybody? Is that bringing any clarity? It brought clarity to me but because, like I said, I wondered why he sent him. But then it's like God told him to, and he reassured him because it was reasoning for him to tell him to separate them. Because here in the commentary, if we're going on what the commentary says, they needed to be separated. And I think that was a good explanation. Well, it answered my question as to why God told him to listen to his wife. At first, I thought maybe it was just for the sake of keeping them from arguing and butting heads, and they're just being a relationship disaster. Let's see what you said. Could have ended up another Cain and Abel situation. Yeah, definitely. Could have definitely ended up another one, because if they're both, butting heads all the time and going at it, that's not going to make for a good situation. And also, it's putting the parents in the middle of just some stuff that they don't have time to address. And if they were always like mocking each other, so between the two kids and between the two women, so you would have had poor Abraham just sitting here like probably pulling the hairs out of his head. Like, what do I do when my wife and Hagar are at odds, and then I have my two kids at odds? So it was best to separate them and get them out of there. God bless Hagar's and Abraham's seed as well, and they are a great nation. That's from Star. Yeah. Mr. Terry put in the verses. So let's see. So now the poll has changed. Did Sarah put Abraham in a difficult position? Oh, it still says 83% of people said no, 17% said yes. I thought she initially put him in a difficult position, because I was thinking if I was in Abraham's shoes, like, man, I would be like, this is my son. I want to be around my son. You want to send my other son away? And I thought at first, like, is she just being selfish? But she wasn't, because they had to do it that way for things to happen the way that God wanted them to happen. All right, I thought I saw somebody say something again. Many are full of the blessings of God's province that are strangers to the blessing of his covenant. Nations are of God's making. He founds them, he forms them, he fixes them. The children of this world often fare the better as to outward things for their relation to the children of God. Okay, let me move on. So God got rid of Ishmael, not got rid of, he sent them to a new place. And let me go back to my Bible so that I can pick up where we left off so that we can finish Genesis 21. And I'm pretty sure I read 12 and 13. Do whatever Sarah tells you. Your descendants will come through Isaac. Regarding your maid son, be assured that I'll also develop a great nation from him. And he did, right? He did. And remember, this other son, Ishmael, let me not jump. Abram got up early the next morning, got some food. So he got some food and got them a canteen of water for Hagar, filled the skin with the water, made sure that they had everything they needed in order to depart, right? So they leave, they go away. I'm just fast tracking everything. I'm gonna summarize it a little bit. When the water was gone, let me skip. So she wandered off into the desert of Beersheba. So she ended up in Beersheba, and then the water was gone. She left the child who was Ishmael under a shrub because she could not bear to look at her son. She thought that he was going to pass because they had no water left. They had no supply. She didn't want him to basically pass of having a lack of water that they need and probably food at this point. So she left and went away from the tree. It says in the Bible, when the water was gone, she left the child under a shrub, went off 50 yards or so. That's what I'm looking for. So she went off 50 yards or so. She could still hear him, but she didn't want to be near him because who wants to see their child just, who wants to see that happen to their child? I know I wouldn't. So she thought it was best to, place him somewhere and then go away. She said, I can't watch my son pass. He has nothing to eat, nothing to drink. So meanwhile, God heard the boy crying. So he heard Ishmael crying is this the same for you, Riaz? I'm wondering if this story to this point is the same. So God heard him crying and then came to Hagar and said, what's wrong? Don't be afraid. Okay, he says, what's wrong, Hagar? This is in verse 17, 18. God heard the boy crying. The angel of God called from heaven to Hagar. What's wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy and knows the fix he's in. Up now, go get the boy. Hold him tight. I'm going to make of him a great nation. So he said he was going to do that in the beginning, and he's still telling her, I'm going to make a great nation out of this son of yours. Just like he said, I'm going to make a great nation out of Isaac. So because they were Abraham's children, God is sticking, he promised them this in the beginning, and he's sticking to what he told them. He promised them that, and he's going to stand to his word. So even though things look like, they're falling apart and people have been sent away, he still reassures her that I'm still going to make a great nation out of your son. Don't worry. I got this. She kind of was being selfish. It was because of her disbelief that Ishmael came about. You did this, and now you want to pout and complain. So she did jack Abraham. Up, but God still had a plan. Yep. Yeah, he still had a plan, and he still followed through with his plan. It's like she was selfish and brought about this. And I even wondered, I'm like, she was selfish. And one of the reasons why this happened, I mean, we know it was all in God's plan, but if we look at it from this perspective too, she was the reason why this happened. And then now she's complaining, like, I'm tired of Hagar and her son. Get both of them out of here. And, Abram had to suffer because he now had to be separated from his other son. I'm not sure what visitation looked like back then. Not sure if he was able to see him, but all these things happened. Now Hagar put her son under the bush, and she's like wondering if he's going to even survive. And this sounds so opera-ish still. Okay, so God was on the boy's side as he grew up. He lived out in the desert and he became a skilled archer. The irony in this is um, he became a skilled archer. So he was somebody who was probably taking lives, right? He was doing what he had to do. And the irony is that he almost passed, right? And God had to come and make sure that um, Hagar knew that he heard the cry of the child and that he was still going to do what he said he was going to do. So he lived in Paran. This is where Ishmael lives. So he says he lived out in the desert and became a skilled archer. He lived in the Paran wilderness, and his mother got him a wife from Egypt. At about the same time, Abimelech and the captain of his troops spoke to Abraham. So we're back to the story of Abimelech. Remember, Abimelech was the one who, in a dream, was, God came to him in a dream and said, don't touch this woman. She's the wife of Abraham. And Abimelech was like, I'm clean. I didn't do anything. I didn't touch him. God was like, yeah, I know. I'm the one that allowed you not to do that. Like, I'm the reason why you didn't touch her. So he reminded her. So Abimelech now and Abraham are about to make a treaty or an agreement so that let me read to you all what this says, because I'm definitely jumping ahead, and I want to make sure you get this from the Bible, not from me. So at verse 20, I'm going to skip down because they had a conversation where somebody took somebody's water, and I'm going to read it to you. No matter what you do, so this is Abimelech having a conversation with Abraham, and he's telling Abraham, no matter what you do, it seems like God is on your side, which if you think about it, if you look at all these things that Abraham had been through, it definitely points to God being on Abraham's side, right? All those instances that he went through. And nobody even tried to, if you think about it, nobody ended up trying to take his life. God was there to make sure that Abraham and his family was okay. Because think about it, with Pharaoh, he caused them to have great diseases. And then with Abimelech, God made it so that the people in Abimelech's family and in the household and the servants and all this stuff, they couldn't conceive because of Sarah. Like, everybody was being punished because of this lie, half lie, partial truth that Abraham and Sarah were telling. Other people were being punished, if you will. And you can see that God had his hand on Abraham, because it's like he was doing this stuff, but then other people were the ones paying the price. So he had favor. He was blessed, and he ended up getting cattle and getting silver and all these things, even though he was the one and the reason why people were taking his wife and, trying to do things with his wife. But he still, if you look at it, still ended up on top, right? He still kind of ended up on top. And so now you have people like Abimelech who recognize this, and he's like, hey, you must have favor with God. I don't want to be in cahoots, but he wanted to be, let me read it. Lord, let me read it. Okay, no matter what you do, God is on your side. So swear to me that you won't do anything underhanded to me or any of my family. For as long as you live here, swear that you'll treat me and my land as well as I've treated you. So he just wants to be reassured that Abraham is not going to try anything funny, but that he is going to make sure that he and his people are okay because they treated him well. They didn't do anything. He had clean hands. He didn't touch his wife. So he's like, can we just have an agreement right now? Can we make an agreement that, you're going to do right by me and I'm going to do right by you? So Abraham said, I swear. At the same time, Abraham confronted Abimelech over the matter of a well of water that Abimelech's servant had taken. This was the part I wanted to get to because he got upset that the person took the water. The servant took the water. And then Abimelech said, I had no idea that he took the water. And then so Abraham says, Abimelech said, I had no idea. This is the first time I heard of it, is when you're talking about it, but I didn't know they took the water. So the two of them made a covenant. Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech. Abraham set aside 7 sheep from his flock. Abimelech said, "What does this mean?" He's like, "I don't understand this. These 7 sheep you set aside." So he needs to explain to him, what does it mean when I get these 7 sheep? And I can imagine that's probably a question anybody would ask. I'd wonder, why are you giving me 7 sheep? What's this mean? What's this mean? Maybe they weren't, they didn't they didn't have the same procedures. They didn't do things the same way to Abraham. So he's asking an honest question like, what's this mean? He wants some clarity because he's confused. Because God still blesses his children even when we are messy. That is what I got out of a 2-star. Even though we make mistakes and we do things and cause issues, cause problems sometimes, because this right here, Abraham is a good example of that. Abraham and his wife, they were being messy. And even though we do things and it may not even be what God told us to do, but we do it, God comes and he still blesses us, still gives us those things we need, and he still provides for us, even though we've done some things, right? And so the Garden of Inspiration says, so I'm trying to figure out how Abraham felt about the way everything had unfolded. Why did God tell him to follow Sarah's instruction? That was the same question I had, Garden, but in a commentary, I was reading that it had to happen because they needed to be separated. Because remember, Isaac, okay, I'm trying to, let me see if I can find it. I want to read it back to you. So I'm trying to figure out how Abraham felt. I know. I don't know. Like with me, I'm thinking about Andrea's thoughts. I'm trying to make sure I read it from the Bible. When I'm telling you all what my thoughts are, and I'm trying to find the information in the Bible to support um, what it is that God says, or to tell you what it is that God says, because I had the same question. I'm like, why is like, I don't know. I think that Abraham probably felt some kind of way about it. And I don't know if he, like, once God said, let them go, just listen to what your wife Sarah said and let them go ahead and go their way. I don't know if he was instantly like, okay, I'm good, or if he still occasionally, had thoughts and was like, man, that's unfair. He may have thought it was unfair. He might have been like, I know God told me to let him go, but man, Sarah, like, why can't y'all just get along? Can't we all just get along? He might have just been thinking, why can't we all just get along? But I'm sure he saw that relationship and he saw the disaster. He saw that, they were into it and mocking each other and abusing each other and, saying all kind of stuff. They were probably saying things sideways out their mouth. And he's like, I want my child to stay here, but maybe this is for the best. I don't know. I don't know. I had the same questions, and I'm really just thinking, once God told him, he felt like it was okay. That's what my thought is. Once God told him to do what Sarah said, he probably felt like, okay, I'm clear. I'm just gonna follow what God said, because he's been following God. Like, he did make some modifications, but he believed God. He had faith in God. He followed God. It's kind of similar to us, like Star said. We follow God, until we just don't know sometimes, and we do things in our own strength where we're not relying on God. So that's where they mess up. They started doing things in their own strength. They weren't fully relying on God and what he said. And then he had to come clean things up. But still, in the meantime, he was blessing them. So I would imagine that Abraham, after God told him to go ahead and do it, was like, he might have still felt some kind of way, but he might have been like, okay, I know this is what's best. If God told me to do it, then God knows best. And I trust God. I believe God. So I'm just going to do it. Maybe he was just going strictly on trust. He might have taken his emotions out of it and been like, okay, I might feel a certain way, but God told me to do it, so I just need to do it. That's what I think. Let me see what God said. This is a star. God also had to establish the hierarchy and importance of being a wife as he commanded marriage. That's a good point. That's a very good point. It seems as though he was on Hagar's side and had to be reminded of God's original plan for him. Possibly, because it looks like he was kind of thinking about it, right? It looks like he was kind of thinking about not sending his son. But then God had to step in and say, no. He must have been thinking about keeping him there. Now that I think about it, he had to be, because God had to come in and say, no, do what your wife said. So he probably was trying to think, which is the best option? Should I keep him here, or should I, send him away? But then he said, do what Sarah said to do. So when he said, do what Sarah said, he's probably like, okay, I don't have to really think about this anymore because God said to just do what my wife said do. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm sure it took some trust. It took some faith that, the situation was going to be taken care of. But if God says do it, do it. That's kind of the moral of the story. So if God tells you to do something, do it. And then God already has made provisions and has already set the stage and made things, God, point of this is God knows everything, and he knows those things that we don't know. Those things are in the future. So he knew what Abraham's future would look like. He knew what Isaac's future would look like, Ishmael's, Hagar, all of them, Sarah. So he knew the correct answer to tell Abraham, which was do what your wife said. And also, like Star said, he was already setting the hierarchy of importance with being, in a marriage. So he's married to Sarah. They're one, they're a union, right? So listen to your wife. If she does not want her here, the other person got to go, right then. So think about it. If you have a spouse, right, and then you got a maid in the house, even if the maid had your child and they were causing issues in the house, and the wife says, I want her to go, or the husband says, I want him to go, or whomever, right? Don't you have to kind of go? Don't you have to go along with what your spouse says? Because you're one, and you have to. It is a hierarchy. You have to figure out. You have to do what's best for you and your family. Now, that was his family too, but you got to do what's best for you and your household, you and your wife, right? So he knew if he kept Hagar there and if he kept Ishmael there was going to be some more things brewing, right? It was going to be something else going down. That wasn't the first, second, last. This is just an example. So I'm sure with all the information he had and all the bickering they were doing and all the mocking and all that stuff, it was best for him to just let him go. Now he just needs to visit him. I don't know. Figure it out. He's gonna have to figure it out later or wait till God tell him how to do it. So he had to listen to his wife. Do what Sarah says. In obeying Sarah, he obeyed God. Correct. Yep. In obeying Sarah, he obeyed God. Whoo-wee, y'all. I feel like, did I miss anything? Okay. We were at 29, and then I know we got to go soon. Remember, Abimelech was asking Abraham what the 7 sheep means, right? So I'm going to find a verse to tell you what it means. It's verse 30, Genesis 21, verse 30. Abraham said, it means that when you accept these 7 sheep, you take it as proof that I dug this well, that it's my well. So he's like, okay, that's the exchange. I'm giving you these sheep, and this is proof that this is a well that I dug. And that's how the place got named Beersheba, the oath well. Remember, all these names mean something in the Bible. So because the 2 of them swore a covenant oath there, so they named it Beersheba, which is the oath well, known as the oath well. After they had made the covenant at Beersheba, Abimelech and his commander Phicol left and went back to Philistine territory. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and worshiped God there, praying to the eternal God. Abraham lived in Philistine country for a long time. So that's the end of Genesis 21. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything that I may have overlooked or not touched that anybody has a question about, or you just had something that you want to say. You just, throughout listening to chapter 20 and 21 of Genesis, and the commentary, because remember I read a segment of that commentary when it came to Sarah telling Abraham that she wanted Hagar and a son to leave, because I had questions about them myself. Why God told Abraham to go ahead and do what Sarah said. But I had that question answered. If you all have a question, comment, or concern about anything, be sure to drop it in the comment section, better known as the chat section, and we'll address it. Otherwise, we'll come back and do this again tomorrow. Genesis 22, where Abraham is tested. This is the part where Abraham is tested. Remember where, and this is a good one, y'all. And then maybe after 22, we can evaluate and see if we want to do another chapter for Thursday. Today is Tuesday, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Genesis 22, maybe Thursday, and then Friday, we will stop. Friday we'll do Freestyle Friday, right? We can do some true some either or questions or something just a little bit lighter because it's Friday. And we've been taking in a lot from Genesis, learning about the story of Abraham and his family, and all those things that God promised them, and some of these things are coming to pass. We see that Sarah, just to do a recap, Sarah had Isaac. Now Hagar and Ishmael are gone. They left the premises. Abimelech and Abraham formed an agreement, and they traded sheep for a well. That's where we are right now. And then Abraham planted a tree in Beersheba and worship God there. So that's the conclusion of 21. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. Abimelech earlier in chapter 20, remember he had a dream. So that's very important to remember the dream he had. Remember that. If somebody ever asked you about Genesis 20, he had a dream and it was regarding Sarah. He didn't touch her. He wanted to make sure his hands were clean and that God knew. God was like, I know already. I know all things. Let me handle this. So that's it. Chapter 20 and 21. Thank you all for coming in. I appreciate it. This is a good study of Abraham. I'm learning some things because I'm able to take more of a deep dive, and I'm glad to be able to do that with you all. Please continue to ask the questions and put your comments and those things that you are learning as well in the comment section, because it helps me to learn as well. We're in here learning together. This is a learning community. So tomorrow we'll do Genesis 22, the sacrifice. I'm calling it the sacrifice. It's, we know Genesis 22. We'll talk about it tomorrow. So have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 o'clock, unless God says different. Have a good rest of your day. Oh, thanks, Geeky Girls Journal. This was so good. Good. I'm glad are you all okay? Let me just ask this before I let you go. Are you all really having a good time with these Bible studies? Because I know I am. You may not be, and I just need to know so I'll know how to move forward. Like I said, I'm still going to do it regardless of people listening to me, and now I'm still going to talk about God. But I'm just curious to know if you all are having a good time, because I don't know if I'm dragging Genesis too long or what. So let me know. You know what? I'll put it in a survey, and in that way you all don't have to say if you don't want. Have a blessed day. Great message. Thank you. Did Sarah put Abraham in a difficult position? So the poll, yes, 17% of you say yes, 90. I'm saying 83% of you said no. I'm going to end the poll right there. And we'll continue Genesis Wednesday and Thursday. And then that we may be done after that. We'll see. I'll ask you all questions. And then Friday, we'll have Freestyle Friday. So have a good rest of your day. See you all tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Have a good day. Boom, 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 boom. Have a good